It's a pleasure to be here. So from Al Ishaq, you have, the Anbiya and Mursaleen until Isa alayhi salam. From Al Ismail, you come to Rasulullah and the Ahlul Bayt. Even our madhab, if we call it, we are followers of Ahlul Bayt. Means this concept of family is part of the identity of being a Shia Muslim. And so family life is very important, and this is where we come to this issue of, relationship between the children and their parents. It's not easy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself in Surah Al-Nisa, number 11, it says, for you to maintain this balance between yourself and your own young family and your parents is a challenge. He says, آباؤكم وأبناؤكم لا تدرون أيهم أقرب لكم نفعا. So he's saying, yes, you have a challenge. You don't know. Should I lean more towards my wife and children or husband and children? Or should I, lean more towards my parents? And this is a challenge which is there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about it. And so when we talk about respect for the parents, you will see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran talks more about respecting the parents when they reach to the age of elderliness, when they become old. Sometimes we hear this complaint that the Quran doesn't talk about the rights of the children that much. If you look at the ayat of Quran and you compare the number of ayat about, the rights or the respect for the parents, those ayat are more than the issue of children. There is a reason for it. You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deals with human beings on two levels. Sometimes He deals with things on a natural level. When it comes to the parents, especially the mother, she doesn't need any ayat of Quran or a hadith from Rasulullah or the riwayah from Imam saying that it's wajib on you to love your child. There is no need for an ayat because Allah has blessed that love of children in the hearts of the mothers more and than the father. Something which is already done automatically with the nature that Allah has created, it doesn't need to legislate it by the ayat of Quran. And so when it comes to the issue of children, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't really talk much about it. He says, I created you in such a way that even if I don't send an ayah saying that love your children, you are going to love your children anyway. But then, the children are taken care of by the parents. They grow up. The parents get them married. A new family starts. By that time, you have your own children, and your parents have become old now. The roles are reversed. When you were children, you needed your parents. Now you have become an adult, you have your own family, but now your parents have become weak. They are old, and they need you now. And that is where the challenge comes in. And therefore you will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasizes this point of especially respect for the parents when they are old, in Quran very specifically. I would like to just share with you 4 ayat from the Quran on this issue. I'm just going through the chronological order of the surahs. The first one, Surah Al-Baqarah, ayat number 83. Although Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is talking about the covenant that He had with Bani Israel, but when He repeats that mithaq with Bani Israel, it's a lesson for us also. So it says, وَإِذَا أَخَذْنَا مِثَاقَ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ. Remember when we took the covenant with Bani Israel. What is the covenant? لَا تَعْبُدُ إِلَّا اللَّهِ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. This issue is very interesting. Islam is a religion which is based on Tawheed. Tawheed is everything. If you weaken that pillar of Islam, Islam is gone. And it's amazing that Allah subhanahu subhanahu wa ta'ala, in 4 places you will see, when he talks about Tawheed, he immediately brings this issue of being kind towards the parents. Why does he do this? Because he would like to show the importance of being kind and merciful and compassionate to your parents, especially when they are old. So the first one he says, even to Bani Israel, he says, لا تعبدوا إلا الله وبالوالدين إحسانا. Do not worship anyone but Allah and be kind to the parents. And then he brings other people, وذي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وقولوا للناس حسنا وأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة. It's interesting. Salat and zakat came later on. Tawheed came first. In between, he is talking about being kind to the parents, and then the relatives and the yatama and the masakin. Second verse here, Surah An-Nisa, ayat 36. Again, same style, but this time he is addressing the Muslims directly. وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. He says, do not worship only Allah, and do not associate anything with Him. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. And remember, be kind to your parents. Number 3, Surah Al-An'am, ayat number 151. Again, emphasizing the same point. قُلْ تَعَالَوْا أَتْلُوا مَا حَرَّمَ رَبُّكُمْ عَلَيْكُمْ. I don't need to translate probably, but I just want to make sure that the young ones, understand it fully. I'll do that. Here, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, say to the ummah, ta'ala, come to me, atlu, I will recite to you what your Lord has made haram and forbidden of you. Number 1, أن لا تشركوا به شيئا وبالوالدين ولا تقتلوا أولادكم, and it goes on. It's interesting that what is the theme? ما حرم ربكم. What is the first item there? أن لا تشركوا به شيئا. But then this issue, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, is like in a brackets. It's not part of the مَا حَرَّمَ. You see, because the list goes on. وَلَا تَقْتُلَ أَوْلَادَكُمْ, that would be حَرَّمَ. But this bringing this issue, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, again, after saying do not, associate anyone in the divinity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, don't worship anyone but Allah, he brings this point, and remember to be kind to your parents. And then he continues, وَلَا تَقْتُلَ أَوْلَادَكُمْ, don't kill your children because of the fear that maybe you will not be able to provide for them. نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُكُمْ وَإِيَّاهُمْ, we'll take care of you and them. وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الْفَوَاحِشَ. Then the muharramat goes on continuously there. But the last verse of the four of them that I want to present here is a very interesting one. And this is Surah Al-Isra, or Surah Bani Israel, ayat number 23 and 24. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَنْ لَا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Same thing. That your Lord has made a duty, He has decided that you should not worship anyone but Him. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, and be kind to your parents. And then this is the important part. Then he says about the old age. وَإِمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ عِنْدَكَ الْكِبَرَ أَحَدَهُمَا أَوْ كِلَاهُمَا. If one or both of them become old with you, this is where I'm saying that the point of respecting and caring of the parents in old age has been especially mentioned in this 4th ayat from Surah Al-Isra. He does not stop here only with bil walidayni ihsana, especially when they become old, then he tells us three things about it. Very interestingly. Number one, he says, be careful in your language, the way you talk to your parents when they become old. When people become old, sometimes they might be irritating. Sometimes they might not understand issues that clearly. You will be an adult, you have your own family, but maybe your old father or mother will scold you for something you are not really responsible for it. It wasn't your fault. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? He says, even in your language, be careful. Even if sometimes they say something to you, have patience. Because when you were an infant, you were bothering your mother more than your father. Your mother didn't say, what are you doing? Why are you bothering me? She will have sleepless nights so that you can sleep. She might go hungry so that she can feed you. She didn't ask you anything there. Now that things have changed, they have become weak. So number one, language. فَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ. Do not even say to them off. In English, we translate it, when you say, as you don't bother with what your father or mother is saying, or how they have, scolded you, or said something to you, or asked for something, and you express this, according to Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu was-salam, he says if there was a word in the Arabic language more lighter than off, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had used that. So even that kind of, attitude of a grown-up child, an adult child to the old parents, it is not acceptable. وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا. Do not chide them. Don't say, you're old, what do you understand? Sometimes it happens. Maybe you're more well qualified now because of their hard work anyway. But don't think that, because now you're more qualified, you can tell your parents, tell them off. No. To maintain the respect. Even if you realize sometimes maybe what they are saying is not 100% accurate. فَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا وَقُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا. And whenever you talk to them, talk in a very polite manner. So that was about the language, how we speak. Then he goes on. He talks about body language. Not the words. The way you show your expression to your parents by your body language. وَخْفِضْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ ظُلِّ مِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ. Lower your wings out of the sense of mercy, compassion, humility towards your parents. Means even the way you would, sit with them, walk with them. And so this is not about kalam. This is about your body, gestures and your body language with your own parents. Even there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, show your humility towards them. Be kind towards them. Always. So when we talk about this issue, especially in the Western society, these things are not that common. But we have to realize some of the things that we have in the Eastern culture is actually based on their religious teachings. If the father comes into the room, the way we have been brought up, you would automatically stand there. Or if there is no space, you will get up to give space to them. All these things are body language and how you show your respect to your parents. And then number 3, he says not only the way you talk, the body language, even when it comes to prayers, remember them when they're alive and also after they have passed away. وَقُلْ رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. That, oh my Lord, have mercy on both of them, the way they nourished me when I was a child. I'm just looking at the time here, how much detail I go into, but just think about it. You're all Arabic here. You know the language. The address here is called Rabbi. It's not Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this dua, address me as your Rabb. What is Rabb? Somebody who provides for you, the nourisher. That act, that noun there, Rabbi, oh my nourisher, the one who provided for me, have mercy on them. And then you have this word, Rabbayani. Calling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Rabb, and then you are saying, according to his own words, say the way you nourished me. In a way, at a much, much lower level, the parents are also your Rabb and nourishers. So you are saying, oh my nourisher, have mercy on them the way they nourished me when I was a child. And this is to be done while they are alive as well as when they passed away. Let's hear Salah. Especially this two ayats, ayat number 23 and 24 from Surah Al-Isra, Surah number 17. I urge you to go and look at it again. There is not an ayat in Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the method and the details of the daily salah. You have more than 30 times, 33 times where he says, Aqim salah, Aqim salah, Aqim salah, in different forms. But you will never see any ayat that says, when you get up for Fajr, it is 2 rakat. You have to ruku. When you go to the sajda, there are 2 sajdas. What do you do there? What do you say? It's not there. It's not that, there was an editor sitting over on one saying, okay, this is the amount of words you can write here, not more. If you wanted to write the details of this daily salat, which we do every day, he doesn't do that. The only salat which he has mentioned is actually salat al-khawf, which you recite in emergency or when you are fighting. So that salat, which is very unusual, I don't think anyone from us has ever really recited salat al-khawf. That one Allah goes into details, how to do it, is 2 rakats salat. But the salat which we do every day, he doesn't give us the details. Yet when it comes to how you deal with your parents when they are old, he says be careful when they become old. Be careful of the language, be careful of your body language, and also remember the dua. And that's where we realize the importance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given for the respect and the caring of the parents, especially when they become very old. So, sometimes people say, my father or mother were not very good practicing Muslims. I learned about Islam more later on. So do I have to really respect them in that way? And the answer would be that even if your parents are kafir and mushrik, you still have to maintain the respect in this dunya and help them. And this is not just a fatwa from Mushtahid. If you go to Surah Luqman, and there also it's very interesting. The same thing you will see in the other ayat that I recited, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not worship anyone. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا Tawheed, and then immediately he talks about the parents. In Surah Luqman, there is this section. Why this surah is known as Luqman? He was somebody who was blessed with knowledge. there is argument whether he was a Nabi or not, but irrespective. He was a person with blessed knowledge, and he's talking to his son, and he gives that the advice to him. In that advice, he starts with the issue, "Oh my son, do not do shirk, because shirk is dhulmun azim." And then the second advice of Luqman to his son is about the Day of Judgment. Be careful, whatever you do, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring it out. Even if it is as small as a mustard seed. That small act that we do, Allah will bring it back. And then he goes on. There are some other advice he gives to his son. But it's interesting that in this advice of Luqman to his son, first is Tawheed, the second advice is about the Day of Judgment. In between, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala adds his own advice. These are not words of Luqman. He says, وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ. The location of this statement is very important, between Tawheed and Ma'an. And those are the advice of Luqman. In between, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala adds this advice from him. وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ. We advise and enjoin the human being regarding the parents, especially he singles out the mother because of her sacrifice. حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ وَهْنًا عَلَى وَهْنٍ وَفِصَالُهُ فِي عَامَّيْنِ. The pregnancy time, the birth issue, later on feeding for at least 2 years. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala there says, I have enjoined the human beings about the parents. And then he ends by saying, وَعَنِ اشْكُرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيْكِ. This is amazing here. He says, thank me and thank your parents. When it comes to the ibadah, uluhiyyah, he says, no, la tushrik. You can't have anyone equal to God on this issue. But when it comes to the issue of being thankful, he is combining himself and the parents. He says, Anishkur li waliwalidayk. This is the wasiyah. وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ. What is the wasiyah? Anishkur li. That you be thankful to me, waliwalidayk, and your parents. This is the way he again brings the level of the parents and the sacrifice of what they have done. And this is where we have to realize that, very, very quickly, let me just make one point. I can't take this aside. You see, it's interesting that Wahhabis have a problem with us. And they say, you shouldn't be believing in wasila. You have to realize wasila is part of the system that Allah has created. When we were in the womb of the mother, who was the razaq? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How did he give it? He provided us through the mother, by the wasila of the mother. When we came to this dunya, again the feeding is done. Razaq is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but He's doing it through the mother. When you start to eat normal things, now even your father becomes the wasila. The rizq is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it comes to you from the parents. So there is no way you can run away from the concept of wasila. Then wasila doesn't become God. But they are important, and Allah says, thank me and also thank them who are the wasila of the rizq that I provide for you. And then at the end he says, وَإِنْ جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ. Remember, during those days, many of the Muslims were those who have accepted Islam, but their parents were still mushrik. And so this is very relevant to those days. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أن اشكر لي ولوالدي إلي المصير. Be thankful to me and to your parents, and your eventual destination is me. On the day of Qiyamah, I'll ask you about it. But then the question comes up, Wallah, if my parents are mushrik, then what? وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ, if your parents insist on you أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي, to associate with me مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ الْعِلْمِ, something that you don't know about, فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا, do not obey them on the issue of shirk. But then immediately he says, وَصَاحِبُهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. But your attitude with them in this dunya still has to be on the basis of ma'aruf. Be charitable towards them. Be kind towards them, even if they are mushrik. And the emphasis, fit dunya, because in akhirah, their path and your path would be separate. And this is where we can realize the importance of, this ihsan, being kind and merciful and good towards the parents, especially when they become old, is the fundamental teaching that we have from the Quran and the Prophet and the Imam. Salawat. Let me just end with two examples, because this was all theory, but based on the Quran, that's why I want to emphasize this. There are many people during those days who had the honor of being called Sahabi. Sahib Rasulullah, the companion of Rasulullah. Even if they only saw him once, technically people in history they say he is a Sahabi. There was a person by the name of Uwais Qarani from Yemen. Became a Muslim during the days of the Prophet. Yemen and Medina are far away. He became a Muslim, accepted Islam, had this desire to go and see the Prophet in person. But he had an old mother. Whenever he would say, I want permission to go and see the Prophet, she would say, but if you go on alone, who will take care of me? So he wouldn't go. Once, because of his insistence, his mother has said that, okay, I'll allow you, but there is one condition. You only stay there for 1 day. Just think about it. He travels from Yemen all the way to Medina. And the bad luck for him was that when he goes to the house of the Prophet, he's told the Prophet is out of town. Those days there was no phone to call the mom and say, can I stay one more day? No. But he was true to his words, the promise he gave to his mother. What he said, and he came back. He's never classified as a Sahabi of Rasulullah. But look at the difference. There are thousands around Rasulullah, but Rasulullah never longed to see them. When the Rasul came back to Medina, as soon as he entered his house, he says to his wife, whoever was there, that it seems that I can sense the fragrance of Uwais Qarni. This is the issue when we talk about you want to be with Rasulullah. This is the issue. Just to be a Sahabi is not sufficient. You should reach to a level where the Prophet then longs for you and says, whoever sees him can wave my salams to him. Why? Because he was respectful towards his mother. For that sake, he even, didn't stay more in Medina. And one more, an event from our own time, I would say, I normally don't easily accept all the stories that we hear of the, ulama and Warafah and things like that. I'm very skeptical about it. But there is one story that I have been told by a teacher of mine. I trust him on this matter. He is the Arabi to only one mosque there. There was an alim in Iran who had gone for ziyarah to Karbala. He says, when I was in Karbala, I saw a dream that a young man entered the haram of Abu Abdullah. He goes in, and as soon as he came close to the saying, in dream, this alim, so he heard the jawab of the salam from the Zari. Alayka salam ahsanta. Now this alim was very surprised. No, what is the interpretation of this dream? He didn't understand. But then during the daytime when he goes to the haram, he actually saw that young man who saw in the dream. So he followed him. He says, I went, behind him. And he says, really, when this person went to the Zari and did the salam, I heard the response from the Zari. So he followed him later on. He said, what have you done? He says, I'm just a very simple man. The only thing I can say is that, I am a very old mother. We live in the suburb of Karbala, in a village. And on Thursday nights, I would come for the ziyarah. Actually, I'm the old father. And, whenever I would come on Thursday nights for the ziyarah, he would say, take me with you. But those days, not everybody had the wheelchair and the means. So he said there was many times I would carry my father on my back and bring him all the time for the ziyarah of Abdullah. And he said, the first time I came in that way, and when I did the salam, I got the response from Abdullah. So if we really want to attain that level, that even the Imam can respond to your salam, and they respond. We don't have the capacity to listen to it. We can only listen if we are connected with them. And this example shows that, when you respect and take care of your old people, even an Imam like Abdullah Hussein, will love you and respond to you in a way that you'll be able to hear it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give us the tawfiq, especially those among us who still have their parents alive and they're old, take care of them. Whatever time you have in your life, consider that to be something, worthwhile for your dunya and akhirah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if they have passed away, always remember them in your dua. Because this is how Allah, Rasul, and the Imam wants us to, continue our life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this gathering and this event, increase our tawfiqat. May He bring peace to the very disturbed area of the Middle East at the moment. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasten the appearance of the Imam of the time. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار برحمتك يا رب.